Shh. Do you hear that? Let's talk about it. This is Bite Size Theology. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bite Size Theology, a ministry of Springfield First, where we tackle big topics around faith, one bite at a time. I'm your host, Allison Means, and today I'm joined by Nick Jordan, and we are talking about silence and what makes it so scary. Why are we afraid of silence, Nick?
Why are we afraid of silence? Maybe we can get to the why, because I don't have an answer to that. But as we talk about it, I really love silence.
Can't relate.
Yeah, that's interesting because you talk about it, but you've got one really little,
Yeah,
and one bigger kid, so you don't have silence very often, right?
No.
And that does not bother you, like if the
No.
house is quiet,
It feels, maybe because I grew up in a house with a lot of kids, and so it's just busy, and that wasn't a bad thing to me. Like, it wasn't loud and chaotic in a bad way. It wasn't fighting and arguing. It was, we've got activities going on, and we're laughing together, and we're playing music, and we're doing, and we were just loud. We're just loud people in my family.
Yeah. Whereas like me in the office here, like shutting my door is like, it feels antisocial, but it's like a survival technique.
Because we're also loud people
just
here.
Just because people are in and out, and it's not that, it's not like it's particularly loud. It's just like I'm easily distracted as part of it, and maybe kind of extra sensitive to the noise. So even like today, I was like sermon writing day, and I music is too distracting. Harvest Market is too distracting. So I was listening to like brown noise or some kind of noise. I wasn't listening to silence, I suppose.
Yeah.
On the why is silence so scary? I think because there's nothing to distract us. I think that really is it. We want to be distracted a lot of the time.
I think it's, when I was kind of mulling this over today, I was thinking about, well, what is it that I don't like, about being left alone with my thoughts? And I think it has to do with a few things. But one of the big things is whatever your tendency is toward. So if I am really hard on myself, I have a strong tendency towards perfectionism that's entirely self-directed. And so if I'm alone with my thoughts, I pretty much immediately get into like really critical self-talk in my head.
Yeah.
No one could be meaner to me than I am.
Sure.
And so I think for me, if I'm busy and I'm doing, and I don't have so much of that. But I think, if you are a person who tends towards anxiety, when there's nothing to distract you from it, like what takes over? If you have a tendency towards melancholy, what takes over?
Sure. Yeah. I think it is that like this feeling of like stuff starts floating up from your depths that you don't want to deal with sometimes in the silence, and feels like something could come up that you're not sure what it is, but you couldn't handle it, or you have this fear. And I don't even know what exactly that is. Although I think like to turn this to scriptural things, they talk a lot about like the sea as this place of chaos. And so kind of this unknown depths that I think we experience in ourselves, that sometimes we wonder what's down there, or we know what's down there, or we're afraid that something.
Man. Yeah,
absolutely. But I think that one of the gifts of silence is when we talk about our lives of prayer. For some of us, when we try to define prayer, there are lots of definitions for it. But I did certainly experience in the churches I grew up in that it was much more about how do you pray meant what do I say to God? It didn't mean how do I listen to God? And so for that to learn how to have a conversation with people, you do have to learn how to listen.
Yep.
And maybe you have to learn how to listen more than to talk. So it's weird to me that we kind of flip it around and say you have to learn the right words or the right whatever to say to God, when we recognize that in human relationships, like you'll figure out what to say. You'll fill that space. It's the listening and being interested in what the other has to say that's harder.
Yeah. I didn't really grasp the whole like prayer is not just you talking thing until I was well into adulthood.
Yeah. Yeah.
The idea of just listening for what God wants to tell you was so wild and strange to me that I was like, what do you mean? Because I have this model for how to pray and I have this model for how to pray. And it's all about I say this, I say this, I say this, I say this. Great. And while those are okay, I don't know that if that's your only understanding of prayer, I think you've done yourself a huge disservice in your relationship with God.
Sure. Or just, I think the good news version of that is there's more. It goes deeper. That there's not like a sense of, okay, I've mastered these techniques, so I've mastered prayer. But there's
I've got an A+ in prayer.
Yeah. But that there's a kind of a greater depth. Because I hope, even the folks that I would say are very good listeners, it seems like they're still practicing all the time.
Yeah.
It's not like I was told that I was a good listener, so I
Done.
achieved that. Like that's the mark of not a good listener. But one of the things I would kind of interject into this conversation is I've heard it said that silence is the first language of God. That we read the scriptures, and certainly it's talking about the creation in particular, and let there be light. But before let there be light, there's silence. Before God says any of it, and to think about what's going on in that silence, and it certainly doesn't seem to be uncomfortable for God to be silent, at least for my experience of trying to get God to talk, and lots of people that I talk to, like God doesn't seem to be in a hurry to share words sometimes. And but if we recognize that our silence can mean a lot of things. It can mean I'm angry at you. It can mean I'm shy. It can mean I'm scared. It can mean I don't have anything to say. But God's silence, I think when we put those very human things on it, like God's not speaking, God's not answering my prayer, and it's because is God mad at me? I mean, even the phrase the silent treatment really does mean that like it's a form of like punishment for someone. And when we apply that to God, I think we just I don't think we're really understanding what's going on there. And part of that, I'm not sure we're capable of understanding that, but I do think that silence does not equal bad, I guess. I think that's...
Yeah. I think a lot of that is a cultural thing for us, particularly in the time and place that we live. Being productive is this, like, you're only good if you're productive.
Sure.
Hustle culture. You've got to be doing something to... Well, is that earning you money? Are you learning, blah, 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 blah. Everything, every second has to be full of doing.
Yeah.
That it's kind of radical to say things like, and this is a thing that I have had to embrace, a thing I tell myself, like, rest is productive.
Yeah. I even as you were starting to talk in that direction, it sounded like silence is connected to Sabbath keeping. Like, it's one of the things that we can cease doing.
Yeah.
And when I think, we started the question, why is silence scary to us? But I think it's both scary and I think we want it, but it's challenging. And so I was very thankful when I started here, especially in traditional service, the opening of the prayer, it's like right there in our planning software that it starts with a moment of silence. And I've tried in previous churches to introduce silence and try to figure out how do I do this in a helpful way rather than like make people suffer. And especially when you start practicing it, 30 seconds really does feel like suffering. And so to have that moment, and I was thinking earlier in just this conversation, it would be so amazing if, we have meetings around here or whatever, where you have a Bible study or you have a small group and you say, would somebody like to open us with prayer? And if someone were to volunteer some time and then, just be silent for their
I'll
prayer.
do that
It
in a
just-
staff
It would just
meeting.
blow everybody's minds.
I'll do
We would
that
just,
in a staff meeting.
Everybody would
Let's
be
pray.
like closed down, and then they'd keep
Right.
you wouldn't be able to enter into prayer. It would just be more like on the edge of like we're not doing
What's happening?
We're not doing anything.
Right.
Rather than sometimes I think of that moment here or in previous churches as kind of a gift to people, because I don't think it's just. I think for certainly staff households, like Sunday morning is not, or it's a flurry of things.
Yeah.
And but I think lots of days of the week are that way. And so if we can kind of give a gift of a moment of arriving and just kind of like, okay, you can just be here. Nothing's being expected of you right now.
Yeah.
That
is a gift.
That can be a gift, and it can also be a sense of like your belovedness in God doesn't have anything to do with, you said the right words or
Right.
all that. That you show up and you do nothing and you say nothing and you are the beloved of God and God's crazy about you.
Right.
That sort of-
Inherently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that can be the gift of silence, because we're afraid of either being. Sometimes there's a lull in conversation, and there's a group of 6 people, and every one of them suddenly feels like all eyes are on them, and in reality, nobody's eyes are on anybody else. So it's just this thing that we place on ourselves. And but I do think that sometimes we have the gift of a real friendship, and sometimes in romantic relationships that if you can just be together, then that's enough. And so I'm not sure what it is in us that resists that same reality.
Yeah, that's an
with God.
interesting thing to think about it with. If kind of your mark of like, oh, we're a really compatible relationship whose love for one another is really deep. We don't have to fill every second with noise. If we have that for a romantic partner, why do we feel like we have to fill the space with God? That's a good way to think about it, Nick.
Yeah.
I have things to think about. I guess I have to be quiet.
Well, it is something that I think that you practice.
Yeah.
And that we really start with kind of smaller goals than we thought we needed. So I first had it I think some of us are wired in different ways for our prayer lives. So there was some of that in me, but in a formal sense, like I had a mindfulness class that was kind of aimed at like group therapy, but what you did was silence. And then there's a practice of centering prayer that is just practicing silence, and all of those, it's kind of like start small and then kind of grow that, and kind of celebrate it, because I do think that there can be a sense of celebration for like 1 minute of silence that really is something that we need sometimes.
Yeah.
And
As a parent, sometimes. Most of the time it doesn't bother me, but sometimes.
yeah,
I just
that's
need
hard.
a minute, man.
And I guess that to have that thought of sometimes silence, we need other people to be quiet. But this kind of silence that we're talking about is really when do I need to be quiet?
Right.
And that does feel like a loss of control, or a loss of producing.
Yeah.
And if our worth is tied to control or to producing,
Right.
or making our own space or making our own way, then that's going to be really challenging. Yeah.
Yeah. But the good news is God doesn't need any of that stuff from you.
Yeah.
He just needs you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what saint it was that talked about her prayer life. Is she said, "I look at God and God looks at me." That's just
And there we are.
the whole of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I might have to add silence to, maybe for Lent, a spiritual practice of silence.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me and for challenging me and for giving me some new things to think about when it comes to silence. So thank you for joining me, Nick, and thank you for joining us today as well. We'll see you on the next Bite Size Theology. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Bite Size Theology, where we take big ideas about faith and break them down one bite at a time. We hope today's conversation has helped you grow in your understanding and sparked new insights on your journey of faith. If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. And as always, if you have questions or you want to dive deeper into today's topic, feel free to reach out. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep growing.